barbarian class, some fucking luchador or something. Because if I want to play a barbarian, I just want to hit things, but I don't want to be a monk. There needs to be a strength punch boy.
Yeah.
Who's like
not a dex punch.
It's almost like it'd be like a fight. It's almost like a battle master, but barbarian and like grappling.
Yeah. Just like greasy and bronze.
Well, weren't we talking about how your brother attempted to create a brawler kind of class and it didn't go well? Yeah.
Oh,
it worked. It worked mechanically. It just didn't work to play because it took so long.
It was.
But it's interesting now that you mention it, because I was just watching like a debate online about whether or not, with this new expansion that's coming out from Wizards, which I'm very excited for personally,
about fucking time.
Whether or not we're moving, whether we're moving into a too much source book needed style of gaming again, like which apparently I didn't play back then, which was apparently an issue in like 3.5, where you needed like 10 books.
I feel like it's inevitable, like as it continues to grow, like it's inevitable that you can't.
The argument they were making is, do we start like, should they move to 6E and refine what they have, or should they keep adding expansions? And my feeling was, you really can start playing with only like your core 3 books, really.
Yeah.
Like you don't need all that other stuff. The classes are very playable, and like the universe is easily expandable even later on without losing anything.
Yeah. I agree too. I think I don't know, I'm always of the mind that more is more, you know what I mean? Like I think there are some things that could probably be pared down a bit, but I don't know. I'm going to talk a little bit about it in announcements, but like I am so excited for a new book. Tim and I have been talking about like our desire for another like Xanathar's. More spells, more magic, more like, and it's just like, that's the kind of stuff I want. Like, do I need more classes? Sure. Do I want more sub-variant feat options? Fine. But like, give me more magic. Give me more spells. That's what I want.
Spells,
I'm
magic
very
items.
For the I don't quite understand it yet, but apparently there's like a new background way of building characters that feels more like, it makes them more organic, so it like explains more how they get the powers that they do. So it's a bit more like doing what we love, which is combining that narrative and mechanic. Apparently this allows for it, which I'm very excited for.
Maybe it'd be an idea at that point when that book does come out that we do a chatWater episode about it.
Yes.
And we all get our copies and read it. Sean, go.
Let me just make my pitch for why I don't want a 6E just yet.
Yeah, pitch it.
5E drops, there's 5 races, and that's great. And that's like the core. That's the core book. That's what it is. But like whenever I make something, I'm like, well, I made a fucking Minotaur wizard. I'm like, ooh, there's little, you can be a grung now. Like you can be a little frog boy. Like I'm all about, yes, I love the grung.
Yeah.
Like.
So does Matt. Matt loves the grung too.
We love the grung.
You little grung boys together.
Are there bullywugs? Can you be a bullywug?
There's not
if you can be a grung, you should be a
You can grung if you want to. You can leave your friends behind, because if they don't grung.
Ain't no friends of mine.
My
anyway.
pitch. Campaign 2, all grung boy party. It's the frogs and toads.
All grung bard party.
The whole thing
all of us.
takes place in one small jungle.
We call ourselves the Grung Gang.
It's a 5-tree system. That's the whole campaign.
Oh man,
actually
amazing.
For just like a 4-shot. All right, let's
like a barbershop, a grung barbershop quartet.
I want to go on record. I want another monster manual. I think there needs to be another monster manual.
Yeah.
So I'm of the belief that at some point they should start releasing like second edition of existing books.
Yeah.
Right? Like instead of being like, here's a new book, they should be like, okay, here's a player's handbook version 2 that has everything that you need, like all like it's updated. And then they can also sell a companion, so you can have like player's edition, player's handbook 1 and 2. If you already own it, you don't have to buy a whole new one. But it would be nice for people starting to be like, oh, I can get the most updated player's handbook, and it's got everything. Like,
that's just 6E.
Baby,
that's what that is.
Well,
if
see,
they're going to release a new handbook,
5.5.
But no, but correct me if I'm wrong. Like when they did edition to edition jumps, there were large mechanic overhauls as well, right?
Generally,
It wasn't just like adding to the existing mechanics. It was like a complete, I don't know, I've never played anything but 5e. Sean, you can teach me 4e one time if you would like.
4e was good.
I know you love 4e. That's what I'm saying. I'd love to learn it from you.
Here's my pitch.
Mm-hmm.
We do a one shot where Sean DMs and we play 4e.
4th edition.
And we just get really confused.
It's crazy. Like I'm listening. I'm
It's
a
so
huge
crazy
fan
it
of.
might just work.
I'm a huge fan of Dungeons and Daddies. Big shout out to them. And like, if any of you in the chat listen to Dungeons
Do they
and
play
Daddies,
4e?
No,
Oh.
but they play
barely
5e.
play 5e.
They barely play 5e. But one of the dungeons they're going through right now, their DM Anthony Birch has basically been like, okay, this dungeon is super deadly. Everyone's gonna re-roll like first edition D&D characters, level 1 first edition D&D characters, and that's what they're playing through this dungeon. Like their souls have been put in these like homunculi to go through. I'm sorry, spoilers, have been put through this. I'm not saying why they're doing this. Shut up, all of you. But they're going through this dungeon and they're playing first edition characters. And I was like, that's brilliant. I was like, that's so fun.
Yeah,
honestly, Sean, I would be super down to play a 4th
that
edition
was what they did in Taz, where they did a whole arc playing in the apocalypse style.
Oh yeah.
And that was my first introduction to that, and it was also like narratively the transit, because they wanted to tell it in like broader story arcs to cover like a bigger time period, and they just the D&D didn't work. 5e system didn't work as well. So yeah, I definitely like the idea of like combining in a single campaign different mechanical styles.
Cool.
I think that's super cool.
You have a group of time travelers, you start in 1st edition and work your way all the way through.
I love it.
And then the travel to Pathfinder.
Oh,
Confuse everybody.
should we have a bunch of announcements to get through, and then our guest of the evening, Mr. Tim Carlson,
Our DM daddy.
our DM daddy for tonight. Should we roll that intro?
I would love that, please.
Do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah. So every time that comes on, without fail, I'll check my phone and I will always get an update from Twitch. And it's like, Blackwater is on. I'm like, oh, and I get all excited and I forget that I'm on the show.
That you're Blackwater?
Every time. I'm beginning to think, like, I have object permanence, but I think mine might be feebler than most.
I always love the fact that, like, well, after we stream, I get an email, or I get the email while we're streaming, but I always see it after, which is like, bring your dad and your jorts.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that's the thing that makes it feel like we're doing an actual like show, but the fact that it's like a customizable Twitch email makes me be like, we're actually not the fact that people are watching, the fact that I get an email that says bring your dad and bring your jorts just makes me feel like we've made it.
I get the push notifications on my phone, and I'm the one who like does all the Twitch like background stuff. So I'm glad you like it. Thank you.
Usually I'm not for like in-character photo shoots and whatnot, but if we did like a cosplay photo shoot, but all the characters in jorts,
when?
that I think.
And you were your dads. You were your characters.
Peppy doesn't know her dad.
You take a guess.
Tim does.
Yeah, that's true. I would love, I'm going to just throw this out to the universe. I have been talking about this maybe to myself, but kind of to Tim as well for a long time. When we get to level 20, I'm going to put together a level 20 Neppy cosplay, like full out. I'm going to do it. I already have a folder saved on my computer of all of the things I'm going to need, but I'm going to do it. I don't care if anyone does it with me. I'm going to do it simply because I have to.
That was one of the things that I loved about the fact that like the first crit roll intro was that they all dressed up like their characters. Like it was such a perfect like encapsulation of how nerdy but also low budget they were at the time.
Yeah.
Like now it's all like animated and they have a theme song and they have a deal with Amazon. But back then it was just like 6 people who got dressed up like, you know, their characters and went out in the woods and shot it. Like I can imagine what at that time when people didn't really know who they were, they're walking through like the canyon in Los Angeles being like, I'm going for my hike. And they look over their shoulder and there are all these people.
Travis with a big
Travis with his
gray covered in blood. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Like there must have been some confused bystanders, you know, Sam humping the air with no visual effects. There must have been some very confused, you know, people walking by. Shall we get into those announcements?
We should. So many. We have so many. So our first announcement tonight is our wonderful sponsors. A big thank you to Legendcraft and Silverwing Armory. Please check them out on Instagram and at their websites for their shops. If you like anything that they do, enter the code Blackwater at checkout for 10% off at Silverwing and 5% off at Legendcraft. Not only does that support these wonderful Canadian companies, but it also supports us a little bit too and helps us do this wonderful, fantastic thing that we love and that you love too, and it helps us bring you content. Big thank you also to Keisha from Fairy Dragon Dice. We love her to the end of the earth and back. We have these beautiful dice that she's made for us. Please go check her out on Instagram. Give her a follow, like her stuff, because we do, and we're obsessed with all of her pretty dice because they're beautiful. Can never have enough. We also always want to shout out our wonderful artist, Tiana. We just received some new art from her for our one shot coming up on Wednesday, which I will talk about in a moment, but they're so good, and we love Tiana to the end of the earth as well. So
and
please
go show her some love because we work her to the bone. Like, honestly, I have never met a group of people who are more obsessed with art in my life than the rest of this group. And like literally anything we do, they're like, can we get art for that? So, you know, support her because at this point, I mean, everyone's just like, I have an idea for something. Can I get art for that?
Can I get art for that? She's wonderful. I think she also a little while ago opened her commissions. So if you are interested in getting some commissions done by her, it's $25 for a black and white line art, $50 for color. So it's really reasonable. And it also, she does fantastic work. She's also like very quick. She's a very she's so good. I asked her even for the stuff for chatwater, I asked her for stuff like 2 days and she was just like, bam, here's some art for you. So I was like, this is great. She's unreal and we love her. Miss._Marston on Instagram is her handle. And she's just a lovely gal. So please go message her. And
as someone who's commissioned a few pieces of art for various D&D characters through the years, those are very good rates.
Yes. And that's Canadian. 50.
That's Canadian?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like $4 American.
And you
what a steal.
And you want to be like super popular with your group. I remember when I played with Sean and he got our first commission done. It means a lot. Like when you don't know it's coming and you play in this fantasy world and someone shows up with like a picture of your group together.
Yeah.
I think it severely derailed our session for the day as we all sat around and oohed and awed over it.
And cried a little bit. Yeah.
If you ever want to blow your party's mind, it's a great Christmas gift. Just a fucking group shot of the party.
Christmas gift.
Yeah. So good. We also want to talk about subscribing. So if you like what we do and want to help support us, subscribe to our show. You can do that through a couple ways. You can do that through just clicking the button and subscribing, but you also get one free monthly subscription with Twitch Prime, which is now actually called Twitch Gaming. So it's changed a little bit. You also get access to more things if you subscribe to things through Twitch Prime, Twitch Gaming. There's some free games that you can get online and a whole bunch of other online content. Please check out Twitch. There's some announcements that are up about that, but we would love if you supported us with your Twitch Prime Twitch Gaming subscription. It doesn't roll over every month, so you have to re-up it. But we're so grateful to those of you who do subscribe to us. It means a lot to us and helps us continue to do this thing we do. Also, we got something really cool. Yanis, that's got something really cool for us. So Yanis, take it away. What did you do?
We got a little surprise, and this was a surprise for Sean and Em as well. We had these wonderful stickers made. I don't know if you can read. Mechanic kissing. It's a theme on our show. We got a bunch of them, so we will be. I think we're gonna do some giveaways in the future, and the sticker will be included in that. And I think we'll work in some ways to just do like a sticker giveaway. So we're working on some more stickers.
Yep.
We love stickers. So keep an eye out for that.
Mm-hmm. And those, Tiana with her wonderful art did these little like peeking versions of all our characters. They're all over our Instagram, and we're going to hopefully get some stickers done of those. So maybe a Blackwater sticker pack with the logo and the chatWater narrative and mechanics kissing, which would be a fantastic sticker pack for us to just have for you folks to partake in some way, shape, or form. Another announcement is what we were talking about kind of right off the top of the show when we were just before we did the intro. The newest D&D source material book is being released November, I think 17th or 19th. It's called Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And please, 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 if you have the...
I love her hideous laughter. I'm a big fan of Tasha.
The very same.
It's the very same Tasha. If you can, please, and you want to order it, rather than order it from a bigger organization, which, yes, of course, you can get that. If you are able to, please pre-order it from your favorite local game store. They generally can pre-order one for you, and you sometimes get it as an earlier release date. We pre-ordered ours already. Tim and I pre-ordered ours this morning from our favorite local game store, Strategies on Main Street in Vancouver. We love them to the end of the earth and back.
Do you guys know other GM Tim who works at Strategies?
I don't know him personally, but I see all of his stuff, and I'm a big fan of his as well.
Yeah, he runs. Oh my goodness, there's another DM Tim.
There's another GM named Tim, and he's at Strategies also. So yeah, all of the folks who work at Strategies, they're fantastic. If you're local in Vancouver, please go check them out. I think if you're interested, they can do like curbside pickup and all of that kind of good stuff to make sure your shopping experience is safe as well. So go order Tasha's Cauldron of Everything from your favorite local game store. And then finally, on Wednesday, we are, for our monthly one-shot, playing a brand new RPG never before seen on the internet called Cathedral, created by our fantastic Matt and GM'd by him as well. It's myself and Adam and Len going through this wonderful, dark, twisty, Victorian Gothic game. We actually have a teaser trailer, which we're releasing here first for your eyes only. So let's roll that trailer. Let's do it.
Biddy, Bobby.
Yeah, it's off.
All glory and be glad, for salvation of Alt has arrived in this town.
My name is Hamza. I don't really want to be here.
Here to purify. I'm going to purify them.
Super short, super skinny on the rules, maximum role play.
This is one of my favorite RPG games.
I love this one.
It's so fun.
It's pretty good.
It's
very exciting.
It's so fun. So Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on our Twitch channel. It is pre-recorded just because of some of the more like dark-ish content. So we pre-recorded it to make sure that we were all really comfortable with what had happened. But I think some of us are going to be in the chat, some of us even who played too. So please come hang out with us. Can't wait to show this wonderful game to you tonight. Okay, or Wednesday. Yeah.
And I have a question, and I hope it's not. Maybe I should ask before I ask this. But do we have any plans of releasing the game module in the future?
We do. Matt is actually in the process of revising and finalizing the game system itself. It needs a few tweaks. This is really only the second or third time it's been played. So we're in the process of kind of working that out, and hopefully we'll be able to make that releasable to you folks.
Very exciting.
Yes, very exciting.
Very exciting. But we are all together here tonight to talk all things Tim and Clak. It was an ask me everything, but not answer everything, as we stated on Saturday. Tim, does it make you nervous to know that you can get all these questions, lore questions?
No.
Did you tell Em to behave?
No, I haven't said anything about it. I have no idea what any of the questions are. She didn't give me any preparation. So I'm excited. Curious to see what people are curious about.
If you have anything in the chat while you're watching tonight, please feel free to throw up the question. Even if you just throw up like a hashtag question, and Cody will be able to pass it over to us so that we can make sure that it goes Tim's way. Yeah.
Okay, what's the hot burning question? What was
one.
the most requested question? That's what I want to know.
The most
when
requested
you Google
question?
like Tim Carlson, does Tim Carlson? What does Google auto correct in regards to Blackwater?
I mean,
D&D?
there was a lot of really good things that came up, but I think one of the big questions that we actually got a couple times in various different ways were, what are some of the moments in this campaign, whether that it's been streaming or not streaming, that have affected you as our DM the most, or that, like, whatever interpretation of that means to you?
Oh man, I would say there's a few that jump to mind. Some of the more like some of the role play moments like that have come out. I would say one of the ones that stands out is that kind of comes to mind right away. I think it was on stream. Maybe not. No, I think it was on stream. Was Kokanee and Letter's discussion around scars. That one was just beautiful. Like it was such a beautiful moment. And it was like, I love any moment that I can sit back and just enjoy. And I'm thankful because there's a lot of those kinds of moments. And they never, what I love about this game is they never feel forced. It's just like there's so many organic, wonderful moments when things just kind of come out. And there's been moments like that within combat too. Like I even think about in pre-stream when you guys were in the part of the Feywild that was being transported, and after the fight when you know, like you guys opened up the hell engine and Callie was just holding the thing that was powering it and it was just slowly killing her, and then Kokanee just jumped in, just like not knowing how it was going to end up, and that kind of thing where it's like, really, like, okay. And those kinds of moments that sort of surprise me too. Which this campaign also is full of moments that where you guys surprise me, which is always fun too. Yeah, those are a couple that jump to mind, but that's a really great question. I'll have to think more on that because I know there's more. I'm trying to think of other moments that really caught me off guard.
Do you find that you build, like, does it affect how you DM? Do you find that you build situations differently to try and encourage that? Like, do you find that you put them in situations that you think will play better to the role play, or do you just sort of let it happen as a byproduct?
Sometimes, like, I like to present situations that have options, but I also try to always remain like open to whatever they do. Like I because I have a background in improv, I'm very comfortable in that. So I really try to roll with, like, if it's not something that I thought of or had planned, just being like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, let's do it and see what happens. Cause I find those moments can be so satisfying. Not only for the game, but I think for the player and the GM as well, where it's like, I think if I can empower the player to feel like they have, like, and they do have control over this story just as much as I do, I think that's what I want. I don't want to be the DM who's kind of like, you're doing this and then you're doing this. And like, I don't like to railroad. I like it to be a collaborative thing. So anytime that those moments can happen where it's like, yeah, you like take the wheel. Okay, let's go. Let's see what happens.
I do think though that just on a separate note, because we've been talking so much about like gameplay and gameplay styles and that kind of thing. Like there's I hear a lot of times like the conversation between like, do you railroad or do you not railroad? And I think like our group happens to be very unique, that you have a sort of a trust of the players that they're not going to completely derail you. So you don't have to put that hard of a barricades on. Like, I know there's a lot of DMs out there who are like, how do I do it without railroading? And it's like, it depends on your group. Like,
it does.
Aside from Sean, there's not many people who are going to purposely try and drive the train off the tracks.
But this is the thing too. I think
I think that's only when it comes to NPCs and relationship interaction.
Is like, I think part of the DM's job too is also setting the boundaries, right? Like, it's like to like, if you give them sort of firm boundaries to play within, you can kind of test the limits, but ultimately it's like, yeah, but you still live in this world. You still live by the rules in this world for the most part.
So is this part of the reason, like, is that the background you have in improv and like the watching of people have these moments, is this sort of the thing that drew you to the lonely world of DMing? Because it is something that most people want to be part of the group. So like, most groups struggle to find a DM.
Yeah.
And pretty much in all of our interactions, I know that you're always eager to play, but you've always been very happy to be the DM. So what, like, is there any other things that specifically drew you to wanting to be the DM?
Yeah, I think I love world building as well. Like, that's something that's always like, I love fantasy and that kind of like world building was very attractive to me. And originally it started off as something I wanted to try. I just wanted to see if I could do it, because I had been a player for some time before that, and it went really well. And I was like, okay. And then I started building the world that this campaign now exists in. And it just spiraled. It just snowballed. Like, I had all of these ideas, and I kind of fell victim to over planning originally. But it was nice now to have that foundation that I can then kind of work from. So it was nice to just kind of get it all out. I made a map. I did all this stuff because I was enjoying it. It was a great creative outlet. And I think part of it for me is that as well, is an outlet for creativity and in a different kind of arena. So, yeah.
I remember those early days when we were playing like strictly in our living room. And like, Tim would spend nights just like 4 hours deep in a lore, like just working on
Sometimes
stuff.
I get into a spiral. Yeah. I'll get too focused on one thing. Like, it'll be like an item or something. And then it's like, well, I got to write the backstory of this item because it's important. And then I got to fill out all this other stuff. But.
Well, and it's so interesting too, because of the fact that like that you DM 2 campaigns set in the world of Teris, that like, there'll be some times where you and I have talked about that you've started planning for this campaign, but something will trickle over, and then you'll be spill over lore into the other campaign that we play in, and then you're jumped over there and doing that kind of lore hours upon hours. It's cool.
This is my question to you, Tim Carlson, and I know this will be a difficult question to answer because each session requires different prep. But what would you say is like either like your breakdown of time in D&D prep? Like, is it combat? Is it characters? Is it lore? Or if that's not a useful question, what is the part of prep that comes easy to you? And what is the part that like you kind of like always drag your heels on? You're like, fuck, I gotta build a dungeon now. Like,
it depends. Because I found that the way I build dungeons is very different from the way that I build kind of when you guys aren't in dungeons. I have a way of building dungeons now that works for me, where I kind of like, usually I'll start with the map, and then I'll kind of map out each room with a number, and then I'll go through and build that room or that encounter kind of like number by number. So I essentially build the whole thing more or less, and then as you kind of go through it, I can tweak things as I go. But I find, especially like something like the money hole, that's not a linear dungeon, I had to do a lot of horizontal prep, if that makes sense, which was like, it was a big undertaking, and like it was nice in a way, because it was like, okay, now I have everything and I can just move things around or kind of like adapt it as we go. But it was a lot of work. It's like, it's a different kind of beast. But I find the ones that are the hardest to plan is usually at the end of an arc or right as you finished something and you're deciding what to do next. Because it's like, I don't know what you guys want to do. Sometimes I'll have an idea, but it won't necessarily be like the money pit. Like I have done the beginning of the money pit like 3 times, because at different points in the campaign, I was like, oh, they're going to go and they're going to further explore this. They're going to keep pulling on this
just
thread.
didn't, Tim. We
And
just
never
didn't.
Which was fine. It was great to kind of see how it morphed and changed and evolved. But those ones I find the hardest, because it's like you kind of have to, I can only plan so much because it is really open-ended. So I just kind of have to be like, I know what's going on in the world. I'll just roll with whatever they decide to do. So that's,
is it like you've done so much world building that like if we teleport to, I don't know, fucking Isle of Glass, you're like, oh, I can swing this.
You still catch me off guard sometimes. When you guys decided that you were going to go to Cinderfall to throw the stuff in the volcano, I was like, okay, sure.
That's actually one of the questions that has just been sent over from the chat was, what is the most surprised you've been thus far in the campaign by a party or player decision?
I mean, that was one of them, because it was like, I knew, because I had an idea of what was going on in Cinderfall because there was a seal there. And at one point there was a time when you were deciding which seal to go after. And so it was either Cinderfall or you were going to go, I think, to the Forgotten Expanse, and you wound up going to the Forgotten Expanse. But I was like, so I kind of sketched out what had been going on in Cinderfall and what would have happened, kind of like just sort of the scaffolding of it. That's generally how I do it. I try not to get into too much specifics unless it's around certain items or things, but it's more kind of general, and then I can kind of work things as I need to. But with that one, it was like, okay, and then your teleport fucked up. So it was like, so it wasn't just like, oh, we're going to go to this place where it's like, okay, I can take you to a magma flow inside the volcano. It was like, oh no, your teleport fucked up. So now you're not only in a place that I don't have fully mapped out, you're in a mistaken place within that place.
Where did you think? Because we were going to magma because it was Nessa who was like, yeah, you got to do magma. Where did you think we were gonna go?
I mean, I think that was my own fault for even suggesting magma, because I was like, I didn't think that you were gonna be like, yeah, let's go to magma right now and toss the shit in.
Oh, you said magma? Yeah, I know.
Yeah. When an NPC tells you something, you listen.
My own fault.
Listen to NPCs.
Listen to your NPCs.
Yeah, that's always a fun one too. When you guys are like, when you go and find an NPC to be like, so what should we do? After like, okay, how much can I give you? I'm still like, maybe try this. But yeah, so that was definitely one of them. I feel like there was one not that long ago too. There's been a number of times where you've gone to places where I haven't like anticipated. Like when you and Clak, when you were like, yeah, we're gonna go visit Yana in Barmwich. I was like, oh yeah, okay. Let me just pull up my notes on Barmwich.
But that was so good. That was
delightful.
That was
absolutely,
honestly, that was like high points from like the last 6 months.
Oh yeah.
Like just Yana and Clak like being like, so what are we?
What
like,
are we? Yes.
That conversation.
What everyone in Blackwater was just like, huh.
Those are the kinds of things where it's like, I couldn't have planned that even if I wanted to. So it's like, but staying open to it, just being like, yes, okay, of course Clak's going to go with you. He might put up a little bit resistance, but like, yeah, it's going to happen. But it's like, we're now kind of off the map, which is fun.
Do you find it hard to transition between being DM and then being like a beloved NPC? Like, I mean, the thing is, like, it's one thing to be like, okay, I'm planning and I'm working and they're playing within my field that I've created, and then to have to step into that field and then step back out and then step back in.
Yeah.
Like, do you find that difficult, or is it kind of old hat by now?
It's definitely gotten easier. But it's fun. Like the tricky part was sort of like, and I also am thankful that the party doesn't really like, they don't go to those specific NPCs for the most part for like, what do we do next? Like they're not asking, because Clak doesn't know. Like he's a sidekick kind of character. So it's nice that the capacity in which these characters interact with them is more of a support kind of thing. Like I think of, Kamea to Callie, it's like, it's more of a support relationship and encouragement and love. And so it's not like it's fleshing out the character, not necessarily driving the story, which is nice. It's like those are opportunities where I get to role play along with, and I get to encourage role play, and I get to engage in it, which is really fun and I enjoy. Right.
We've talked a lot about bleed on the show, and like when you step into those characters and you step back out, like, do you experience the same kind of bleed that the rest of the cast does with their characters, like from individual characters, or is it more sort of like a general campaign bleed?
I don't experience a lot of bleed. Like there's times when like things will happen in the story that are like, that will kind of get my mind racing, and that kind of stuff. But I don't necessarily experience the same kind of emotional bleed. And I think it's because of my work as an actor. I'm used to, when I leave the hall or leave the rehearsal hall, it's like I leave it there. And like there are times when I've like, not necessarily worried about characters, but there's been times when I've been like, oh no, like this is bad. But ultimately, like I try to bring the emotional stakes within the game, and it generally, I'm able to sort of separate that from kind of my day-to-day, I find.
Do you find that the distinction as easy to make when you play in a campaign? Like when you play a character, is it the same kind of thing? Like, is it because of your acting experience, or is it because of the difference between DMing versus being a player?
I think it's a little bit different. Although, like, I think I've had a bit more. Like I think of like if Chubb died, I would be bummed out. Like it's a different kind of relationship. I mean, if the whole campaign like I think when the campaign ends, this campaign ends, I will have like a period of grief, as like, because it's less tied to one character, it's less individualized, it's more of this thing. So I think once this thing sort of wraps up, that will be its own experience. But yeah, with a character, I think it's a bit different. Like there is a bit more bleed there.
I don't know how I'm going to deal with all of you guys when this campaign wraps up.
Don't
like,
even get me started.
I'll be choked, but you guys are going to be like a mess.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Everyone's like, oh yeah, we'll gear up for campaign 2. And I'm like, really? You guys are going to be up for that? Like, it'll be like,
we talk that way because we can't actually deal with the reality.
It'll be like someone's significant other passing away, and then you being like, you ready to get out there and date again? Like, everyone's going to be like, no, not at all.
I think we're all going to go through some form of mourning, because I think something that comes up for me is the fact that, like, we are going to have to reform as a group. I think back to our conversation about group dynamics, because we have been playing with us as these characters, anticipating us playing in these specific ways for so long. We're going to have to relearn each other. We're going to have to restorm. We're going to have to renorm. And that kind of stuff can't be pushed, and it can't be forced. And I think something that's going to be really interesting is that, you know, all things going well, that's going to be streamed, right? Like, we're going to be streaming that from level 1. We're going to be starting off as these brand new characters. So not only does,
are we
like,
starting at level 1? We shouldn't. Sorry, that's not important. We'll get into the details.
We'll get to details later. But like, we're starting at a lower level. So that is a party that has never traveled together. So that's going to be something that, like, all of our the people who are watching and here along with us are going to experience with us, is us having to regrow together while there's still a period where we're mourning. And being careful that we're not slipping back into those old characters.
I have been thinking about this a lot, slipping into the old characters, because I've thought about all the characters I've played and like the threads that tie them together, meaning just like my personality. And like, because when you make a new character, often I find people are like, I want to do something different. And perfect example. Well, I'm not going to talk about that because I might use that character. Oh no, my curtain! Let's stop peeking. But like M, I feel like okay. Here's what I've been thinking about. If I played another character, I was thinking about playing someone who was like deathly shy. And so, like, what part of their thing was like they only talk to the group, and they're like, I'm afraid to talk to NPCs because that is Letter's whole thing. I was like, could I even do that? Because I get so much joy from stirring the pot. It's like when I tried to play that high elf detective character, because I'm like, I'm finally gonna take notes. I'm gonna play a character who takes notes, and I'll need to take notes. And I learned I can't. Like, my brain doesn't work with those kind. Like, I can't take notes and go. Maybe afterwards I can debrief with myself.
Yeah.
But like, I don't, without, revealing too much, I'd love to hear your thoughts in terms, because I know, Em, you're like, I've got a character picked out.
I do.
And so like how are they, like,
I can't tell you about them.
well,
Like, I can't.
fucking
Let's put it this way. Something I think I've noticed over the last little while, and I've been talking to Tim about, because Tim and I talk about D&D a lot. We talk about it at least maybe 3 times a day, at least, if not more. All of my characters that I have that are in active games right now are slowly becoming neppy. And I'm trying really hard to stop that, but it's very difficult because I'm with her so much. And like my warlock that I play in the other campaign that's set in this world, Drusilla, she is like adopting some of Neppy's qualities. I'm like, that is like inter-character bleed, and I got to be careful about that. I got to put up some partitions around that. And like Saren, my half-elf rogue, that, some of these characters you might have seen if you watched my birthday one shot, but like they're all becoming a little bit like Neppy. So what I'm trying to do is like, I was doing some values work with myself. So like thinking of like, what are Neppy's values? What are things that like are tenet core aspects of who she is as a person, her change. And I'm like, let's flip that on its head. Like, let's do the opposite or not. And then not just do the opposite of that, but opposite and then branching, because I can't just play anti-Neppy, because that will too much like her character.
What is that, just a book?
And it's like, and it also may just like turn her back into Neppy through character development and growth if I choose to play like a lady identifying character. So I did a bit of values work with myself of like, who is Neppy? What is the opposite of this? And let's branch from there. So my hope is that she's not like Neppy at all.
Tim, do you have any hopes for campaign 2? What you'd like to see from us?
Oh, I don't know.
Is there anything we can do to make your life easier?
I hope, the only thing that I hope is that we don't stray into like, we're all sort of like, we're not good guys. We're like, we're not good guys. We don't care about people. Because I think that's just like such a common pitfall of like second campaign is where it's just like, well, you were heroes in the first campaign, so you can't be heroes in this. It's like, the game is kind of built for heroes. You don't have to be great people, and you can still have those moral ambiguities. But like when you start off with it, it's like, I don't care about anybody but myself. It's just, I don't think it's very, I think it's a lot harder to get traction and group cohesion when you've got a bunch of people who are kind of like,
and that's what I love kind of about like the module system. Like a lot of people will like shit on like playing a module, and they'll be like, oh, you want to play a homebrew world. Like the module system is great because it unites a group of people for a singular purpose. And then whether or not they want to be heroes or not, they get given specific tasks that force them to work together. They all are there because they have a common goal. And when you can do a homebrew one where people are just like forced together and they've decided what their own goals are and none of them are cohesive, then you end up with this weird sort of like exactly what you're saying, like, I don't care about anybody attitude. But I wanted to just bring it back a little bit.
Please.
You guys, Em, you mentioned you and Tim talk about D&D a lot.
Yeah.
What is it like DMing for your spouse? Like, is it something like, I know you well enough now to know that you would never hold punches. And I know Em well enough now to know that she'd be very upset if you did. But like, are there like, do you plan things where you're like, man, this is really going to get her? And like, does it make you nervous?
Like sometimes, I mean, it's one of the things that is hard is not being able to share stuff that I'm planning. Like I'll get excited about something and then I'm like, I can't tell you because it's spoilers.
And he does it all the fucking time. He just looks at me and goes, oh, I just planned something cool. And I was like, what is it? He's like, I can't tell you. And I was like, gosh dang, why didn't you tell me?
That is sometimes hard. Because I do want to share it with her because I'm excited, and then it's like I just have to sort of wait, especially if it's something that like I know isn't going to pay off for a little while. Like even the money hole, when it like she first figured out sort of what was going on, when they first figured out that it was counterfeit, because I knew what was kind of going on within the money pit for a long time. It was kind of like, this is not going to pay off. I can't talk to you about it for a very long time. It's not going to pay off for a long time. But yeah, I mean, and then stuff within game sometimes, like, I think of even the stuff with the Matron of Vengeance. I knew that was going to be like a decision that was coming, because it was like, we're going to commune with her. We're going to ask her for her help. So I knew that was going to be a difficult decision, and I wanted it to be a difficult decision, or and so that was something that I was like, I don't know how this is going to go within the group. Here you go. And like difficult things like that, or, when Valsoom took Kokanei's heart and things like that, where it's like, I know that's going to be a hard character moment. Or when Hade died, the Mother Superior.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I know this is going to be a hard character moment, but it's also like, this makes sense at this point in the story. So.
Is it weird? I mean, it's not weird. But like, there is something that like, we are married and of like, we're partnered, and that it almost like in game that exists, but in that moment, like, I don't want any special treatment. I don't want to be treated like I'm his partner. You know what I mean? I'm a player in this game, and I don't need any special treatment. I would expect the same thing of like, I would expect him to treat me as if the other players. Now, granted, he may have to deal with me afterwards, but but yeah, like I think after the Matron of Vengeance stuff, like after that session, like I was upset and I was not having a good time, and like Tim listened to me, and like I had a little cry about it, and so we talked about it, and as like he talked to me as my partner, not necessarily as the DM in that moment. So I think that there's a good almost compartmentalization of that in the moment. And you're absolutely right. I would be ticked off if he pulled a punch on me. I would be like, why did you do that? You didn't need to do that. Like, I can take it. If you need, like, it would be the same thing if the villain had the opportunity to kill Neppy and didn't take it simply because Tim was worried about my emotional state with her. Like, if the villain's going to kill Neppy, they're going to kill Neppy. So
on that note of like doing things that at the time will cause discomfort or hurt, is there anything that you have done in the campaign where you're like, I wish I hadn't done that? Like, are there any campaign regrets that you want to talk about? Like, I mean, you don't have to share, because I know a lot of times it's like, playing the what if game in campaigns are the worst. But is there anything where you're like, yeah, I wish I hadn't done that? Or
I'm trying to think. It's hard to pin down a specific. I think, yeah, it's hard to pin down like a specific thing. There are some things I guess I wish I had done somewhat differently. Like I think we had talked about taking a time jump after Torrent's death, and it just, the way things played out, it didn't happen. And I kind of wish that we had. It probably would have been good to have a bit of breathing room. But things moved ahead as they did. And sometimes because that was the thing, it became a thing of where it's like, well, I can kind of put what's organically happening to a halt to then force this kind of this time jump now, or I can let things play out as they will. And then the time jump, which just came later, and it made more sense. It's like, sometimes that happens where it's like, I wish that could have happened, but at the same time, I wouldn't have sacrificed what did happen in lieu of that, if that makes sense.
I feel like also you're a very, we've talked about it before, one of your real strengths, in my opinion, as a DM is your desire to provide a game that best suits the game that people want to play. So you basically run almost like a whole bunch of different games inside of your one big game that satisfy the needs of each player. And being that kind of conscientious DM, I feel like you're not the type of person to make decisions without the proper forethought. Yeah. So like, you're never going to kill someone on a whim. So it's hard to run into sort of like truly
Yeah.
regrettable moments.
One thing I will say, something that I did in the like kind of first really big arc of the campaign that I wish I had done differently is I overplanned. And the payoff took just a bit too long to start. Like the pieces took a bit too long to kind of fall into place. When they did, it was very, very satisfying,
so
but it could have happened in a bit more of an expedited way. Like the stuff with Caradoc and the Chaos Elemental group, like I sowed the seeds, but it like part of it was just the party kind of just missed a few hooks early on. Like they just sidestepped a few encounters here and there, so it didn't quite tie together. So there was a bit of time before it started to come together where it was kind of like I could feel the players sort of putting their arms out, being like, where do we go? Like, what's the next thing? And then when it did start to click, it really came together nicely. But that was something that like, it's a hard thing to navigate. And that was, earlier on in the campaign, and I was still learning kind of the ebb and flow of things. But yeah.
It felt like it really started to click for me when we were in Fawe Tavar with Nissa's Nissa leaving Shinkick in the mech and like the giant war machine, and then her like the execution that we stopped. That's for me when really things started to fall into place, and then it was just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
boom,
it was kind of like it was exponential. Like it was like very slow, and then things escalated very, very quickly.
Yeah,
it was fun, but
so fun. But yeah, I think that's such a good question.
And so, other than the trying to not over plan sessions, are there anything else like? Because am I correct in assuming this is the first campaign you've DM'd?
Yeah.
I mean, are there anything else that over this process that you've learned? Like, don't over plan, but what other sort of tips would you give? Like things that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I think it's just things that I learned to bring into the game, where it's like just staying open to people's ideas, and also like having a dialogue as the game is going with the players about their characters. I think is very useful as well. Like, I don't know if I want to say it because it might be spoilers, but when Callie talked about changing her oath last season, that was something that like I didn't know if it was a for sure. It was something that we had sort of talked about, but we never came to a concrete decision. But it was a sort of like, this is something that we're talking about, and checking in with. And I'm trying to get better at that too, of checking in of like where does the player want, like not necessarily. I'm not necessarily going to follow their plan of like, this is where I want my character to go. But I want to be open to that of like, where do you see, like, where is your character at? What is their goal now? Especially as characters start to complete major kind of like cornerstone goals, like from backstory and things like that, where it's like, like I've done this thing from my past. I've resolved that. Now what? And sort of trying to keep that dialogue going. And also like, that also leads for me into like multi-classing and stuff like that, of being like, hey, if you want to multi-class at this point, like these are options that are now sort of available to you in a way because of things that are going on. Or if somebody's like, I want to multi-class, when Matt was like, I want Kokanee to multi-class, it happened to work out very, very well with the story, which was very satisfying. But staying open to that and being okay with like, it doesn't all have to happen at the table. You can have a dialogue going with your players. I think that's really important.
Well, that's one of my favorite things is the when Sean told me about the conversation that he had. I think that was Sean and M had outside of the game. Or was that Adam and M?
Oh, it was Adam and myself.
It was Adam and M. Sorry.
That makes sense.
But Adam and M had a conversation like in character outside of the game. Like, yeah, I do think it's, and that sort of leads me into a question that I have. Like, do you as a DM, do you like to be sort of slightly omnipotent in the sense that you know what your characters, like what your players' goals and dreams are, or do you want them to sort of hide that from you? Because I know a lot of times, like I've played in certain campaigns where I've felt where I'm like, I don't want to share with the DM because I don't want him to like, influence my direction or my decision. Like I know what I want and I will try and get it. He's facilitating the world, but do you prefer to know so you can like narratively weave? Or
I think it depends on the player. Like if the player, if it's something that like, if the player wants to keep it from me, that's totally fine. I mean, I feel like eventually you sort of figure out, like, okay, they're trying to get this kind of thing because I want to facilitate it. I generally, I don't want to be like, no, like if it's a bad idea and I don't think it'll work, then it won't work within the game. Like it just like, it just won't happen. But generally I want to be helping facilitate that. But I also, I like to weave it in an organic way. So if I, especially that's why I love like everybody did awesome backstory. So it's like, I'm able to grab things from that and start to weave those into the greater world. And to me, that's very satisfying in growing a more three-dimensional place that you're living in, where it's like you have contact. Like that's why I love, like when Sean's creating NPCs, I love it. It's like, cause you're fleshing out the world, right? You're making this living, breathing place. Now I have to keep track of those people, but you then create like a more vibrant place where it's like, oh yeah, Tad, like how's Tad the bartender doing? Like what's his month been like? Like
our manager, he's the manager.
He's the manager now.
The owners are gone all the time.
Speaking of
no.
Oh yeah, the patch.
The gravel boys are co-owners.
Speaking of which, how do you keep track? Are you a pen and paper guy? Do you have like a big Word document?
I have a giant Google document that's over 250 pages long. That is not organized.
How do you
so
navigate
you
that?
use
You
the
just
search
scroll?
option?
It's a lot of Control F, baby. A lot of Control F. That's my best friend.
Do you have like sections where you break down characters, or is it just like really hodgepodge?
It's
like as the character comes up, you just add stuff.
It's pretty hodgepodge. Yeah, it's like it's a living document, so it does change, but I don't have like sections of like these are all the characters.
So you need an assistant.
I do. I would love an assistant
to organize your notes.
I had like early on, I had like all the cities and like these are like all the different places and who's in the cities and how they're governed and like all that stuff. So the like first little bit of the document is quite organized, and then it just is like fucking work.
I don't want to put you on the spot. So then to like when you're building new stuff ahead of time, where does that live in the document if it has to do with things previously? Is it just like a new chapter?
Well, it's not even down at the bottom anymore because there's stuff below. Like it used to be at the very bottom, but there's
it's like a timeline.
Just moved down.
It's like a timeline almost, right? So like
there's
future and then there's past.
Yeah, exactly.
I keep joking with Tim about when we do eventually come to the end of this campaign, and Tim and I have talked a lot about like potentially creating a campaign setting for Wolfar and stuff like that. I was like, your notes are going to be such a nightmare for me to go through.
Tim, I will come and you and I will work it all out, and we'll hand it to M like figured out. So like M, you never get to see it. It's in your mind, it's completely organized and exactly like you would do it.
But you'd have to give it to me in my organizational system, otherwise it's no dice.
So we'll need all your books so that we can cross-reference.
Well, I give Tim free access to any of my like notebooks. He's welcome to go in them at any point. Whether he does or not, I don't know.
I usually just ask.
Yeah.
If I need clarification on something.
He knows where it is.
If I can't find it in my document, because that has happened where an NPC has been created and then I can't find it in the document. I'm like, oh, I know this, but I haven't written it or fleshed it out. But yeah, it's like, or I'll go back and then copy paste the relevant information into the most recent or so it's close by. And then, but the best part is too, there's tons of encounters that just never happened, that just like have been planned but never happened, or NPCs that just never got visited. And so I'll just like go back, and it's fun to actually go back when you revisit a city and then you're trying to find a place. Like when you guys, I'm trying to think of.
We went to Svelen and we were looking through all the different.
Yeah, to go back and be like, oh yeah, I can grab one of these other, like I had built this, tailor or whatever you just never visited, and just grab that and bring it forward. So it's like that character has existed for a while, and then it was just fun to bring it back again and stuff like that. So
was he canonically the guy who had already made the two shirts?
No,
Or
no, no. That was
okay.
just too good
That
not
was
to
something
do.
you and Matt had made out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone in the chat asked a question. Actually, one of our dear friends, Dungeon Scribe, asked about how the Airstriders are working out.
So good.
So good.
Yeah.
Kokanee is
good.
wearing them. He got them from his dad. Not given. He took them off of Alamir when he killed him. So they're great. Thank you very much to Dungeon Scribe for that
I'm
item.
such a sucker for magic items.
Tell us about your love of magic items, Tim. Talk to us about items.
I love magic items, and that's why I'm pretty liberal with magic items this campaign, or I have been trying to curb it a little bit because it does get out of hand. But it's like I just think it's so much fun, and especially when you land on an item that becomes like again sort of like a cornerstone for a character. You know, like I think of Spooky Pants. I mean, that was like you build the character from that, but it becomes such an integral part of the character that it can be so rich in development, and like as you get more powerful and the things that it's fun to see the things that you guys accumulate and hang on to, and really like cherish, and the things that you guys really glom onto. It's very fun. Oh, the big party outside, and but yeah, I love that, and I also love like whenever I get to give you guys a new spell too. That's another. I love being.
Let me tell you something, Tim. The fucking time between getting the spell and getting it, like being able to commit it to the spell book, is so terrible because there'll be moments where I'm like, I need to use this scroll. This scroll will be clutch, but then I'll never get to know this spell. It is the worst. It's such a good mechanic where it's like, yeah, you got a scroll? You can just use it anytime you want. Or you can like just save it, or you can just drop it without using the slot. Like fucking, you can just do it.
How do you make scrolls?
Like in the
game?
world?
Because if you are a wizard and you just had endless amount of scrolls, you would just never need slots.
I think there's a mechanic for it. I think you have to be
a certain type of wizard to write a scroll.
An enchanter.
Part of so theoretically, there's some fucking billionaire douchebag who's like, I don't need to study magic, and his spell book is literally just spells, and he just goes.
I love that.
It's a nightmare. But he'd have to be powerful enough to cast them, because if you're under the level, then you're like, it doesn't. Well, it can work, I think.
So there's some level 20 wizard out there who's just raking in the bucks selling scrolls.
That's the guy that we left on the Amonkhet that we didn't look into his stupid tower.
So no more scrolls for you guys.
The wizard in the tower.
He's on an island.
Wizard in the tower. Eleben's Observatory.
Is the wizard in the tower? And if this is too far, you don't have to answer. Is the wizard in the tower in the top part of the document or in the bottom part of the document?
He's about 3/4 of the way through.
Okay.
He's not at the top.
Here's an interesting question. Speaking of order of the document, is there anything that you have planned like really early on that has yet to pay off?
Ooh.
Like, because you work in arcs, and then but is there anything that you put in like in the beginning where you're like, oh, I can't wait for this to pay off?
What Yanis is asking is there another money hole situation? Like,
no, but I mean, like, it could even be it doesn't have to be like arc ending payoff, but is there? It could even just be like a little morsel tidbit.
Yeah, there's definitely threads that there's threads from earlier things that have yet to be pulled, and or like that will start to. Yeah, I mean, I can't say when, but that there are threads that exist. Yeah, for sure.
So
for sure, but the money hole was one of the close to one of the longest. As far as story hooks go.
When you plan, because I'm always curious about like the story arc planning, because it's always interesting, like the fact that the things always have like really nice sort of neat arcs. Do you plan like a couple arcs ahead to sort of know how it's going to flow, or do you wait till the completion of the arc and then, okay, now I need a new one, or like halfway through you're like, oh, I should probably start working? Like, how does your process work for that?
Kind of. so the first arc with the chaos elementals, that I planned that whole arc, and that was something that I wish I don't know that I should have planned it quite out as much as I did. I think that's why it took so long to kind of take off. But I would say before the end of that arc, I had already started thinking about Velsum, and and that was kind of that was one that I knew when I got Matt's backstory. I was like, okay, this is one that I like. This character is something that I want to work into a bigger thing, and it grew as they got through that. It was like, oh, okay, this is kind of where I want to take it, and it became kind of a major arc for the whole party. And then I had the idea for the current, I don't want to say current arc, but the kind of arc that we're transitioning into. I also had the idea kind of, I would say, just over halfway through Velsum. I started to kind of brew on it. I generally work sort of from themes and then kind of extrapolate out from that. So the chaos elemental was sort of like the chaos kind of thing, and the kind of elemental forces, and then that sort of distilled down into Velsum and the sort of thing behind that, that was actually influencing all of that. And then this, I can't say what the theme is for this arc. I think I froze.
We still hear you.
We still hear you. You're good. Your hand is moving like you're casting a spell, but you're back.
And
there
now
you go.
my camera zoomed out. I can't say what the theme is for this arc, unfortunately, but I think it will become clear. It could, if you really thought about it, you could start to kind of piece together some of the ideas that I'm working with. But yeah, we'll see. That's the other thing too, is I try not to hold on too tightly to things, because I feel like if I get too tight on an idea, then I start to then I'll start railroading. It's kind of like, this is sort of the theme that I want to be working with, and now it's like, okay, what kind of events can move that in motion and work that with the party, and it's also the level that you guys are at. It's like, you're very powerful, and so it's fun to kind of think on that scale as well. Yeah, I wish I could tell you that.
This is just a hint of what it's like at the Carlson House on a regular basis.
How, Tim, do you go about planning out combat encounters? What's your process there?
I work a lot from intuition. It's I find that combat encounter, I am not someone, I tried for a while of the kind of balancing out challenge ratings and doing the whole sort of table thing, and I just didn't find it useful. I found it overly complex and not always it just felt sort of forced, where it was well, I have to get this many monsters or whatever. Whereas now the way that I approach it is, I also try to think, I try to keep combat to something that drives the story, or if it doesn't, then it's serving a purpose, as far as when you guys were in Bacall, when you were getting to Velsum that first time, it was there was a lot of little encounters, but it was more to sort of drain you guys, so it wasn't you're not going into that final fight fresh. And that, whereas something like the encounter that you're coming up against very soon, you are going into fresh, which is good
for you guys.
But for you guys, but that was something that I the creature is more or less homebrewed, and the kind of circumstances around it. But I also try to think of if depending on the challenge rating of the character, I also like to think of environmental stuff that's either going to be a hindrance or a help. And generally more now it's a hindrance, because you guys, again, are very powerful. So it's circumstances of the battle. So it's I like this creature because it can do these interesting things, I think of the alleyway fight against the moss demon.
That was such a good fight.
Yeah, or Velsum in the mansion. that was one where it was like I had the idea
Narrative mechanics.
and then I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. And because like Velsum on paper was strong, like I powered up a pack lich to kind of reflect where you guys were at level wise, but on his own, like freshly rested on his own, you probably could have handled him pretty easily, as with any kind of single monster, I think, for the most part. But when I was able to change the like field of battle, that became a really like, oh, okay, that's how I can really upend this encounter. So it's not like we're just going in, we're just gonna hit him till he's down. It's like, oh no, we have to think about how we do this. And that's how I've started to approach it more recently. And yeah. And then as far as balance, I don't think every encounter should be a deadly encounter. I think if the dice go that way, then they go that way, and that's kind of exciting in its own way. But it's been definitely, as you guys have gotten stronger, it's been more and more kind of intuition around like, I think this will be strong enough, or it'll have some ability that like I can counter certain abilities to kind of keep you on your toes, I guess, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A really good question that came in from the chat, kind of like, you know, of course we're now at like level 14, so we're really powerful. But so you're going to be, you know, starting with us at a lower level, whether that's session 1 or otherwise. And I even think back to when we started, because we started this campaign that New Year's Eve night on 2017, 2018 at level 5. We started that because it was just going to be a one shot. If you were to do a session 0 with us, is there certain topics and emotions or a tone that you want to take with it, like putting in or not putting into the campaign to kick it off? And like, how do you toe that line or keep that together to have everyone feel engaged and comfortable?
I think that was something that we never had with this group, was we never had a session 0. And I like, in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing that I think all games should have. But I think I definitely would, because we know each other very well at this point, like it would, I think, be a much easier kind of conversation to be like, okay, what's in bounds, what's out of bounds. And I already have a pretty good idea just from our conversations as a group, but it would still be good to revisit that. I think that's just a good thing to check in with people constantly, as far as content. But then I also like, I think when we approach campaign 2, I do want to be open to like, what kind of a campaign, at least to start with, or what kinds of things are you interested in? Like, we haven't had a lot of, you know, something like political intrigue, a lot of like, you know, we've had a few dungeon dives. We haven't had a ton of dungeon dives, and things like that. So it's like, is that something that we want more of? Do you guys want to be going out more regularly on big dungeon crawls? Do you want, you know, more kind of like city politics? Like, do you really want to kind of settle into a place for a while, like a Waterdeep sort of?
I've really been missing like the dungeon politics. I want to go through dungeons and get really municipal about it.
Sean just wants to play small town sheriff.
Look,
wherever he goes.
I'm not gonna lie, small town sheriff sounds like a hoot. Level 15 small town sheriff, like, we're dealing with people like that I can just kill by flexing my brain at. But the point is
tyrant, small town tyrant.
No, we don't do that. It's people we could just evaporate, but we can't.
We don't. That's the whole thing. We're benevolent like that.
So yeah, I think that would be another conversation of like, you know, or is it something you want more stuff on the water, like pirate stuff and that kind of like, and that I think will help inform kind of where I want to set it. I have an idea, but I'm like, it's nothing set in stone as far as like where we would set it. It'd still be in this world, but where in this world,
or when
start it, or when. Yeah. So yeah, I think talking to your players about that, also talking about what kind of characters you want to build. And I've been really mulling over the idea of using Matt's, I think he created it.
Yeah.
The sort of defining moment mechanic that he's come up with. Have you heard about this?
What is this? What's this?
Oh, let Matt tell you about it. It's great.
Fucking brilliant. Yeah, I will let him talk about it. We talked about it on the DM show. And
give me the elevator pitch. Come on.
It's kind of like a hybrid of like level 0, level 1, where you're a commoner, but you like at any point between sort of 0 and 1, you can kind of call your defining moment. So, and that sets your class. So it gives you a reason. But what I like about it is unlike the commoner, or at least the commoner start that I've seen most commonly, where it's like you're just a commoner and you find your class, you have some agency over it as a player, where you can be like, I want to be a cleric, or I want to be a fighter, or whatever. And you don't necessarily start there, but when you call your defining moment, maybe it's like, you go over to a player that's just gone down unconscious because they got hit by a rock or something, because you're so weak, and you're like, I need this person to be okay. I need you essentially pray to heal them. And that's sort of your defining moment, where it's like you get a taste of your class before you actually get your class. And that is sort of what sets you on the path. And what I like about it is it gives you a really tangible connection to your class, as opposed to being like, well, I thought about it and I want to be a rogue, and then I'm going to multi-class down the road. It's kind of like oh yeah, no, I'm a rogue because this situation called for
Very
it.
cool. Very cool.
So,
something I love about that mechanic too, and we talked a little bit about it on Chatwater last week, was the fact that it actually gives on like a group dynamic side, it gives the group an opportunity to gel, and gives them a reason to be together. It links their, like, it gives them emotional stakes with each other before you're like set into the group, like, this is the history. I was the head of a thieves guild. My parents are dead. I'm an orphan, rogue, all of that kind of stuff. It's like, it gives you an opportunity to join with these people when you're all kind of still figuring out who you are, which is such a quintessential human experience, that is inherently it is inherently connecting when you're with another person or with another player whose character is going through a moment of growth. So growing, it allows the group to grow together rather than for the first couple levels, these people growing individually and then stumbling into each other, which I love. I hope we do that. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, it's a cool mechanic. I'm definitely interested in it, and I think it would, this particular group I think would also take to it, because you also can just keep it open, where it's like you don't choose a class and your defining moment just happens to be whatever you decide it to be.
Communication major.
Or you implore, like, say you need help with something, and you like reach out to a divine entity, and it turns out it's a patron. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, now you're a warlock.
I love this so much, because my favorite way to play game, I love games where you're fucking, here are the cards you're dealt. Fucking make the best of it. I love that shit so much. And so oh God, look, I know this you already had this thing of the DMs thing, and I'm sorry I missed that, but like, no, it's okay. Fucking, that's so wild to me, because I'm like, ooh, I think I've been thinking like, ooh, I'd play this if I came again. I played this, but the idea of like, what is a fun person I want to play, and then letting the situation dictate it, that is my jam. Let us do this.
Well, and it's interesting, like in a couple episodes from now, we're going to be talking about GM styles and archetypes as well. And it's kind of the whole concept of pantsing versus plotting. So it's rather than like plotting who you are and doing all of this planning about who you are, you kind of just get to stumble into it and have your pants pulled down and figure out what's going on.
That's where you guys are going to arrive for campaign 2, and Tim's going to be like, here's your pre-rolled characters. There you go. Here you go. This is who you're playing.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
No, pick a number between 1 and 6. Yeah. There you go.
But
wait. No, I thought of a dumb idea.
There is room for that. There is room for that in the world of DMing, especially if you have new people who really don't know what, like, they're like, this is overwhelming. There's so many rules. It's nice to just be like, here you go. This is all the information you need.
One of my favorite things with like helping like folks who are brand new get into, and it is like walking, as we did last week, walking them through character creation and that kind of stuff can be all done with being a DM. Something that's really awesome is like when Tim and I started playing D&D, we started playing D&D together at the same time, and it's just kind of something that we've got to enjoy as like a couple thing, and that's kind of the thing we do now. So it's been a really nice joining experience. So as he's learned to DM, and I've been able to kind of tangentially learn and pick up things that he's learned alongside, which is how I think helped me as a player a lot and given me confidence for like I have DM'd 5e.
Fun fact, she's a great DM.
Thanks. But I prefer to DM like one-page RPGs where things get real silly. And so I think that there's a lot that can be learned when you have people who are DMing. And like, I mean, I'm surrounded by some amazingly talented DMs in my life. So I've picked up a lot that way. And I just happen to be married to one of them. So it's pretty nice. There was a question that's been like, we've had multiple times come in over the Instagram, and it's about NPCs.
Oh boy.
So one of the question is, who's your favorite NPC, Tim? Or it's like, or if it's like, if it's a couple of them, why do you like them so much? What is it that draws you to them, and what have been some of your favorite NPC moments?
I mean, near the top of the list, I gotta go with Adonis. I love Adonis so much because entirely improvised. His existence was entirely improvised, and it has grown. Like it's been very fun to have this like sort of through line of a character that is so much more than he appears to be, but the players know, but they don't know. And it's a great, it's just it's fun to have this sort of like, it's not a trickster really, but like this kind of semi like omnipotent being that's just kind of at like their peripheral. And that I love Adonis. And it's also fun, like every time you visit him, just having a bunch of random trinkets that rolled out and just being like, here you go, here's a weird thing.
Having it not really do much and it doesn't cost us much. I love that.
It's great. Who else do I love? I mean, I love Clak and Command, there's no doubt. It like they're wonderful. Like it's fun because they have become so fleshed out as characters in their own right, and it's also fun to have that connection with players, with you, Sean, and with Lennon, and that kind of like to build that sort of relationship with them is very enjoyable. Who else? Anytime. I just want to make a pitch. I would love more than anything to see Clak and Kamea just hanging out and like what they just talk about. They would have they would have nothing to talk about.
Like they love the same people.
It'd be great.
They could talk about Callie.
Yeah,
they're big fans of Callie. Okay, anyways, give me the next one.
Who else? I'm trying to think of outside of those kind of core.
Who's one where you're like, I hope they go to this town so they can bump into this dope again? Like,
Erkin was like that. Just because of the mystery of like, who the fuck is this
weird platinum guy?
Also, fun fact, improvised. His first appearance, totally improvised.
Yeah, because we were all out searching because we needed platinum.
He rolled it to like a natural 20. So I was like, oh yeah, okay.
We needed platinum to make rings for Warding Bond, and there was no platinum in the city. And then Kokanee and I think Yana and a couple other folks rolled into this platinum shop, and there was Erkin, who bought platinum at a higher value than it was, and was so unwilling to part with it.
Yeah, it's great. I'm trying to think who else. I really liked Zelix. This was a character.
I like Zelix too.
We love Zelix.
Who was a gnome who had been transformed into a mind flayer, but was still very small and like retained enough of his own humanity that he like hated what he'd become and therefore hated other mind flayers. So his whole goal was to just like find them and kill them. And he helped the party a bit, and then he went out on his own.
I have the big list of NPCs that are notable.
Yeah, Zelix was very fun.
Give me like thumbs up, thumbs down on the NPC.
Thumbs down.
Kamea, big thumbs up.
I also love Volketh.
I love Volketh so much.
I love Volketh's character, but I just don't trust him. I think he's bad news. No.
You can trust him.
No.
If you need someone to help you move,
Found a guy
or,
in a
like,
ring.
babysit,
You can trust that.
Yeah.
Trust that guy.
You can trust that guy.
Absolutely.
Like folks like Kern Burnman.
Oh yeah, Kern
Love
Burnman's
Kern
great.
Burnman. He's been around from the beginning. Like Neva, and as Silmac, Nissa. I love Nissa. I have a big love of Nissa.
I got a question. Which NPCs have surprised you in, like, when you're writing, like, oh, this is what this NPC is, but in portrayal, it was like, oh, it is this. Like, even as something as simple as, like, I'm gonna do a Russian accent, and it's like, I guess they're Mexican, like, because I can't.
That kind of happened with Magrin's accent. It was it just got sucked into Irish. That was not the intention, but now that's canon. So all dwarves in that time were Irish. I mean, Clak originally was written as a jeweler. He was a jeweler in the plane of Earth that was like just like a random NPC that you could find. But then it was like the situation dictated, and then I was like, I'm just gonna grab him because it was easy. And but yeah, the like first kind of written account that I have of him was like he's a jeweler that you could come across in the markets. So that was one that like. Just totally. And that happens sometimes where I'll like, and I kind of strayed away from that now where I'll generally build like, sometimes I'll have specific NPCs tied to specific places. Sometimes I'll just have a list of names and then a list of places that are fleshed out and then just kind of fit it as I need to. But who else?
Here's a question. Is there any NPC you made and you're like, no, that's dumb. That's not making it into the... It's not making it in. It's not making the cut.
There's definitely a bunch of dumb NPCs that never got found. Lots of
Is there a theme? Okay, here's the thing. I've noticed there's themes of dumb shit that I want to put in and think better of. Do you have your like cutting room floor is littered with like a theme of dumb ideas?
I love that question.
I love characters with a secret, like a stupid secret, or like I'm trying to think of other. It's hard to think of like because you've come across a lot, or a personal favorite. I love NPCs, and there's an NPC that has made it into the other campaign that we play, and also a side quest thing that we did a while back. Of just this like blowhard captain. I love blowhards. And he's just this like big old blowhard like sea captain who's just
I remember him.
Terrible. Yep. His name's Ort Chumbo.
Yes. Ort Chumbo. I remember him, Captain Chum.
He's fucking out there on the high seas, lying up a storm about his reputation. I think I love blowhards and stupid names. Fucking stupid names get me every time. And that's one thing I hate is whenever it's usually it's always when I have to improvise and I just don't think of something fast enough where I just name a character or something dumb like Vanessa or something where it's like, it's a stupid name. It's like, that's not fun.
They can't all be Grape Nub.
Yeah, right.
They can't all be Grape Nub.
Yeah.
We've also had a lot of questions come in about Clak too. Yeah. If you're willing to answer some Clak moments, what have been some of your favorite Clak moments since he's been traveling with the party from all those many sessions ago when we first met him?
When Yana found the statue that he'd been making.
Oh yes.
The like tasteful. He did a tasteful nude statue of her, and she found out about it, and it went really badly. And she was like, "It's art, and I like admire you." I'm sorry. It was very fun to play a character who was like, did something that was inappropriate, and then realized, and then was like, "Oh fuck, I fucked up. I want to fix this." But it was sort of like, maybe this is irreparable damage. So that was a very fun character development moment, and is like set a nice, because it led to the conversation between Clak and Yana in Barmwich.
Yes.
It's like such a wonderful, just delightful moment to play out. And I thought it tied so nicely to like those moments before where it's just like, yeah, like it's fun to have like, he's into Yana, but then the actual evolution of that and what that looks like. And it's like, it's like a sweet thing that exists, but it's also like he also just wants to be her friend, and that is important. That was very fun. Yeah. That anytime I get to use
I don't think our audience was with us yet, but there was a whole running gag of no one knew what Clak was carving. Like,
yes, for so long.
In his free time, he would like turn his back
and just be like quietly whittling,
working on something.
You just hear the tinkling of a hammer.
He like, it got discovered. Like, it wasn't like he got caught doing it, I think.
Callie clocked him doing it. Yeah, it was Callie.
It was like, oh no. Like,
on like a second or third attempt though, she had like tried to figure it out, and
then it all went sideways. And that was, and then there's been some moments with Callie, and like after when you guys were in Temple Philenis.
When Hade died?
Yeah. And that was really, I thought, a really great moment of like, for me, it was Clak hit a point where it was like he felt like he let you guys down, and he took that on.
Sweet
and
boy.
Like, because he's not, he's not really on the front lines. He's not usually in that position, but it was a moment where it was like, okay, you have to watch out for what's going on inside. And somebody got through. And even though there was, nothing that he could have done to stop it, really, like, he's not powerful enough, but it was like, that was his job and he failed. And so that was a really, that was a lovely moment to play out.
That broke my heart. When he said, I let Neppy down, that broke my heart.
It's like shit. Also when he, when you guys were, when the Garistro came out in Wolfreen, and he went in and shot the Wand of Wonder and then just got gored. That was another good one where it was just like, yep, he's just like, when like he has that ability in him where it's like, he cares about the party enough that it's like, okay, shit, like the rubber hits the road, he's going to be there. He'll do it. And then, he got gored.
Clak is best boy. We love
he
Clak.
Didn't die, but yeah.
Clak is from, all of the stuff in the chat. And like, I think about when Clak went missing, like everyone who's watching along, as well as us, we're like, where is our boy? Let's get our boy back. Like, Clak is I think a very much a fan favorite, as well as Kamea. But I think Clak holds a special place in everybody's heart because he's just such a lovely, sweet boy.
Well, that was another moment that I thought a lot about, because it, like, I didn't want it to be terribly contrived, but I knew that it was something that was on the table. And it was interesting for me because the reasoning that I sort of thought about, like, I don't think ever really got addressed in the game. Like, you never really got to the bottom of why it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I can say it doesn't really affect anything now, but
they're all dead now.
They're all dead now. But Letters and Clak had a bounty on their heads, a pretty sizable bounty.
Oh.
Because you'd escaped, and
that makes sense. Yeah.
And so it was essentially like and that was the thing, when you guys didn't look in that bag, the bag that you found at the edge of the fountain, it was full of gems. It was full of emeralds.
Yeah.
That was the bounty. He was taunting you that basically, like, this is what I got for your friend.
Yeah.
So it was like Alamir found out, because that was his whole job, right? Like, he was like, he like, they learned everything about you guys. And so he found out that there was a bounty on your head, and he knew that, like, it would be more impactful for him to kidnap Clak and sell him than it would be to try to get you.
I can't believe we didn't actually look in that bag.
That was the thing. That was a moment that you guys sidestepped that I was like, oh, I wish you hadn't, but
we should have got Finnan to look through the bag. Fuck.
I think he'd already used that ability at that point. And it was like, because we were running on fumes at that point, just about to get to,
So it was like everything in McCall was just designed to bring you agony the whole way, where it was just like, and just demonstrating that, like, we control what's going on. We know how to hurt you.
Can you talk a little bit, Tim, about Valsoom is a villain. For me, it's so fascinating. Like when you think about big bads, like I think most notably from like Critical Role and stuff like that, like Vecna and the Briarwoods, and like this campaign's, I mean, there's some big bads in this campaign, but like the biggest bad that we've come across as of this point, and I mean, the current arc aside and what it's leading into, and like all the crap with Cora Thorngage, Chatwater, we will get there. Maybe. But Valsoom was a long-standing big bad that had ties for Yana's backstory, Nepi's backstory, and Kokanee backstory.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Can you talk a bit about him and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. It was something that I when Matt kind of wrote about, because he hadn't named the character. It was sort of that he worked for this king, and the king was a collector. And when I started to sort of think about that and flesh that out, I came to the idea that it was like, well, he collects, but it's actually in service of something. It's not just because of his vanity. It's like that to me. And then that's where kind of Yana's backstory like started to work in with the spooky pants. And it was like, oh, okay, this is like, and then it kind of grew into that. But what was fun about Valsoom was that like, because he had a relationship with Kokanee, I could put you in situations where you couldn't just attack him outright in the open. And that was really fun and satisfying. And I'm like, it doesn't always work that way. Like you had a bit of that with Zakis, but with Valsoom, you really you had a chance to interact, and like Callie had an interaction with him with her wife right there. And
oh God, that was the worst.
Introducing that character in that moment where it's like everybody's around. There's all these dignitaries. You can't just.
This was at their wedding. Just for everyone.
It was after their wedding. It was for the coronation.
Yeah.
And having those moments, and then the moment on the boat as well, where it's like, he's now like, and I'm really glad that Matt, stuck true to his character and went along with that, because it would have been easy as a player to be like, I know this is bad news. I'm not going to do it. Like I'm going to find some excuse for my character not to do it, because I know this is going to end really poorly. But Matt, like, I'm very thankful that Matt as a player was able to be like, no, Kokanee would do this, and go ahead with that, because it then, you can create that amazing tension in those moments where it's just like, he's like, Valsoom's in control. And it was very fun to have a character as well that was a lich and therefore smart. Like he was smart. He was a survivor. He had been around for a very, very long time. So again, it was like playing with a villain who, like, there's an element where I, as a DM, can use my own knowledge of your characters, against you in a way, to kind of heighten the stakes, right? It's like he knew what things to kind of press to hurt you. And it was similar to when you guys were fighting Baron von Kron.
Yeah.
And, he knew Callie well enough to be like, I can hurt your friends and that will hurt you more. And that kind of stuff where it's like, and Valsoom was nice too, because he also was a character that like was born out of a place of like, he wanted to do good. He wanted to bring like balance to a city that was very unbalanced. And I mean, I kind of got that across in that one shot. It was a bit chaotic because there were so many people there, but there was a big class disparity, and it was like, that was his way of trying to address that. So it was like, he was always trying to like, create this sort of equality. And even when he killed all the slavers, it was just like, he could just do that. And his motivations were, driving that, like I can make a better world. I can do it. And this is how I'm going to do it. And it was very, very fun to have a character like that had his own motivations and was able to, hurt the party in certain ways to like really pull you in. It was very fun.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And something I find really interesting about the way you DM is the way that stuff happens. And like, I think about the money hole being a ginormous example of like when we sidestep things or go and do other things, like the world carries on.
Yeah.
What is that like to like plan around us, but also kind of like having time marches forward.
Yeah, it's fun for me, like, because I get to like really flex the creative muscles of like, okay, like you haven't addressed this or something has happened with a character, and now you haven't seen that character, you're not dealing with that character. Even Volkath, I think of, it's like he's gone. You have him for a while, you're talking to him through the ring, and then you help him escape, and then he disappears out of your life. He continues on to do his own thing that you're not keeping track of. You're sort of like sometimes trying to keep tabs on him, and you're getting little snippets, but it's just like he's now just a character out in the world doing his own thing. And like, who knows how that will come back. So it's fun for me to have those things now out in the world that I can play with and think about. And like the money hole was, originally it was just a small counterfeiting operation by this dragon. and that, because that was a fun idea to me. I was like, what if this, old dragon was like, ooh, I figured out a good way to fleece people of their gold, and I don't even have to leave the comfort of my cave. And then to just be like, okay, how does that, when you guys do eventually come to it, and it's like, okay, well, it's been a while. How would that play out? If somebody was doing that, how would it change? How would it grow? And then kind of coming into where it did. But yeah, like, thinking about those things allows me, like, it, for me, helps me keep the world alive and breathing. So when you revisit a place or you revisit a character, they're not the same as they were when you, like, depending on how much time has gone by, they're not the same as when you last saw them. And for me, that's fun because it's like, that's what people are like. It's like that creates that sort of living, breathing entity that is a homebrew world, or any world that you're playing in D&D. It's like that's what I think adds that layer of depth and stakes, is that, yeah, these people change. Jar is growing up. Every time you see her, she's getting bigger.
Don't talk to me about that sweet baby girl.
And it's like, that's
how
really
old
fun.
is she? Like 8?
She was 9, I think, when you found her.
Okay.
So she's about 10.
Okay, cool.
She's still quite young, but it's like, those kinds of things. Yeah, she's also an elf. Those kinds of things. Yeah, I guess the equivalent of 9 in elven years. Or she'd be like a baby. But yeah, so those kinds of things are fun to think about, and I think keep the world alive and interesting for you as players. I hope, anyways.
What are, not to toot our horns or anything, but like, what are some of your favorite things about DMing for this campaign?
What do you like about us, Tim?
Yeah, what do you like about us, Tim?
What I love about you guys is you're all very good at saying yes. You're all very good at diving in and saying yes and supporting each other along that. Like, it's something that I think we take forward as a group, as a value, to be supporting each other and that. And I think you, like, have only gotten better and continue to get better at like navigating that, of sharing space, and you're all, I think anyways, this is what it seems like to me, is you're all each other's biggest fans. Like, when a moment happens between characters, you're all sitting there just lapping it up like I am. It's so, everybody is out to champion the next person, and I think that is really special. And it's easy to tune out if you're at a table that you don't have that kind of, like, if you're not invested in each other's characters, you kind of tune out and you can lose focus. And I think that's sometimes when campaigns, the wheels start to fall off, is because it's like, well, you're not taking an interest in each other, because that's really what's driving the story, is the group of you. And I think taking that you all take a great interest in each other's characters. Like, at least it seems like that anyways. I don't know if it's true, but yeah, it's fun to watch. Like, when something big happens to one character, you can see the ripple it has on not only your characters, but all the other players.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks and stuff. That's really cool.
No, I definitely think the whole group dynamic is very special. And it's, yeah, I mean, you're a fantastic DM, but it's also like the whole group works so well together that it allows everyone space to create. But I definitely think that, like, as far as Clak goes, he's definitely a favorite. Are there things that you don't like about Clak? Like things that you've created about him that you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't made him this way? I mean, I don't want to be harsh to our favorite boy, but I mean, he started off, like you said, completely differently. And now you've essentially worked a character into the party that you always have to be at the drop of a hat, which are like most DMs' nightmare.
I wish, I mean, I love his voice, but I wish he didn't sound like, I wished all the pets, I wish I didn't handcuff myself to that being the voice of all pets. But it is, and I love it now, so it's fine. I love his voice, and I love the other Petch's voices too.
My favorite thing is when you have to play the other Petch.
The three of them together?
Because none of us, I don't know, maybe you can keep track, Em. I can't keep track of what their characters are supposed to be when Clak's not around, or what they're... So it's like, anytime we talk to the other Petch, Tim's just like, all right, I gotta do the Clak voice, and then you like spin the wheel of like...
Whether it's Kreger or Shale.
Yeah, Gorge is lower.
Is
Gorge
this
has
dopey,
a lower
sleepy,
voice.
happy?
Yes, Gorge, sorry.
And Gorge
like,
is like
sneezing?
really laid back, and Kreger's got the high pitch voice, and he's really uptight.
Okay,
and...
you do keep track.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, I just can't keep track of them, so it just feels like you're putting on different people.
But no, I am glad that we've been able to navigate him being not like a player character. He's very much stayed in the realm of sort of side, like with a bit of randomness, and that like the Wand of Wonder I love. It's an item that I love outside of Clak, but just in general. But it's been like a very good way to be like, you can try, like he can try to do something and it might work out, it might not. So it gives it an element that's out of my hands, which is very nice. But yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything I don't like about Clak.
Nothing. He's a perfect being of light and
I
energy.
like Clak a lot.
faultless.
Maybe too much. Maybe that I like him too much. And I don't
you heard it
want
here first.
to
Clak
kill
will
him.
never
but
die.
yeah, no, I like him too much, and that's why it was like it was hard when I had to kidnap him. I was like, yeah, I gotta do this.
Was there a chance that he would die in that situation?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, there was a chance. Yeah, there's I think I can only think of one character off the top of my head that probably has total plot armor or total immunity.
Who's
and
that?
You're not going to tell us who it is.
I can't really tell you.
No, don't tell that because then we'll exploit it.
I know who it is.
Now I need to know.
We'll throw him at a dragon.
Well, let's do our theories. Can you
No.
Can you hold a straight enough face not to give anything away?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we can't talk about it because
we'll
the fact
talk
that we
about it after the
know
stream.
that there's a creature that has plot armor, like we can figure that out if we're clever. I'm already putting together theories, and that's less fun to me. If I know that, then I'll.
Oh, it's a villain. It's fine. It's a villain.
Oh,
I'm kidding. No, it's an NPC.
We're all just like, oh.
It's an NPC, but
it's Adonis.
I mean, you fucking try to kill Adonis like.
I mean, a lot of things try to kill Adonis.
Yeah. Oh, they get close.
And he just needs his group of friends.
I have a whole, like, Adonis has a whole thing going on.
I cannot wait at the end of this campaign. No, because he'll probably still be alive for campaign 2 because he's a fucking angel.
I mean, it may. I feel like it may get revealed maybe in the next birthday one shot what his
next May
his greater deal is.
Could you imagine if the next campaign is him like? All the Blackwater people are gone and he's gotten in trouble again and he's like, I need a new group.
I was like, who do
flex
you
all these commoners?
Just flex all these random people out.
That's how we start campaign.
Or they're all like people who are standing like just too close to Blackwater at that moment.
Yeah, right.
He just misses.
So Letters is like buying something from he's like buying an apple and the guy's buying it from just like, the fuck am I doing here?
Oh, that's so funny.
It's a very good way to start a campaign.
Just tried to get Blackwater, a tried and true tested
Blackwater
adventure
adjacent.
group, and he missed. Yeah.
I love this like mistaken identity. Like they're at like a costume party and like he talks to the wrong person and like some dude is wearing like a Viking helmet and it looks like Letters' horn. So he like
That's
sees
so
the
funny.
silhouette.
Or if he's like drunk or on drugs of some description that he just like grabs these people because he thinks they're Blackwater. That's
See,
so
that is
funny.
a one shot and we all just have to be.
That'd be amazing.
That is one where Tim, you just give us commoners and like
Yeah.
you are Olga the baker.
That's how we can test out the defining moment.
Yes, we play test
Get
it.
it in a one shot. That
Yeah.
would be so funny.
That would be very, very funny.
So good.
That's one of my favorite things that Tim has allowed me to do is to let Kale keep living on, and then also to be so like chill about all my weird random suggestions that I've messaged him about the whole situation.
Oh yeah.
Because in my mind that whole story is still going.
Absolutely.
And so like I'm like there are like lots of things where I'm like, ooh, what about this? But yeah, the Kale and Adonis having like a sort of burgeoning relationship was definitely
Be like, it's a will they, won't they, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was definitely like in my mind.
I ship it.
In my mind, I definitely was like, there was like a moment of like, I wanted to take Kale in like an interesting direction, and I never really sort of thought of like a love interest or anything for him before, and I had this sort of like feel of Adonis that it would be very much like, you know, the young guy who moves to San Francisco and moves in with like an older sort of like gender fluid guy who like showed him a whole new like world or like viewpoint on sexuality that he'd never like experienced before, and like took him to all these like parties and like, and I was like, what would Kale do in that situation? And he very much just be like, okay, let's go along for the ride. And so I was like, yeah, this is kind of like a super interesting direction to take him, because like you can't really develop him as like as a sorcerer anymore. Like he's not out there like slinging spells and kicking ass anymore. He's working in a shop. So like it's more of like a character thing. So yeah, I really appreciate Tim's like being like, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'm curious to see what ends up happening with the two of them. Are there any more? I don't know if there are any more questions from the chat.
I think there was one, because we talked about all the things we love about Clak and some of the things Tim, what is your favorite thing about Clak? We've talked about the things you wish you'd done differently with being his voice, but like, what is your favorite thing about Clak?
Favorite thing about Clak is I think the supporting role he's taken within the party. And that he has different relationships with each player, like with each player character.
Maybe this is too much of a behind the curtain, but I'm going to ask and you can decline. Like, what does he see his relationships with each character?
I mean, I think some of them are more obvious. Like he's obviously like Letters is like a brother. Like they are, you know, they're like family, and because of their shared history and that Yana is obviously there's interest, but also just as like someone he wants to be close with, someone that he really cherishes and admires. I think same with Callie. Like I think he looks up to Callie in a way because of her ability to protect and that kind of steadfastness she has for the group. I think that Neppy, I think in a similar way, but a little bit more, not in a maternal way, but he doesn't want to let Neppy down. I think he holds Neppy a little bit higher in a way. Same with Kokanee, where it's sort of like, you know, like he holds you up to a, like, not on a pedestal, but there's a little bit of more reverence there.
Sweet boy.
And I think with Kokanee, it's similar. And then like Matt and I had a moment where he went to Clak to help him make the ring. That was just kind of between like he was like, I want to go find Clak and do this thing. And that was a really like, you know, because they hadn't, Kokanee and Clak haven't interacted a ton, but that moment, I think, really solidified a deep sort of respect and that kind of moment where it's like really, you want me to help? And that, yeah, that kind of like, oh wow, oh okay, yeah. That kind of I don't know how to put it into words, but that relationship really solidified there, I think, for me, as a very profound moment for Clak. And with Finnan, I think it's like I think Finnan's the one that, because he's so young and he sees the dynamic between Finnan and Letters, he likes to kind of rib and jest. But I think it's because he sees, like, even though Clak is much older, there's a youthfulness to him that I think he sees in Finnan as well. And I think he wants him to be a part of the Gravel Boys, but he sees him as like, he likes Finnan a lot, to the point where he feels like he can kind of rib him and kind of joke along with him in that kind of like, in a similar kind of sibling way, but more where they're closer in age in a way. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. There's a kind of like, yeah, there's a familialness, I think, that he sees in Finnan. He likes to kind of joke along and give him a hard time here and there, but all out of love.
Like maybe like a slight rivalry. Well,
yeah, I mean,
like seeking parents' attention, seeking Letters' attention.
A little bit, or more like, like he's the, like, even though Clak was around before Finnan? No, after Finnan.
No, I think
just after
Finnan.
Yeah.
But I think he sees as like, because he wants to be in the Gravel Boys and like they like to make jokes together. There's a friendship there that is it's different. There's less, like, it's not as serious. It's more like I like you enough that I can joke with you. I can poke fun. And whereas, like, he's never going to poke fun, like, not intentionally poke fun of Kokanee, really, or Callie. Like, he's not gonna go out and make fun of him, but he might, throw some jokes Finnan's way, because he's young and like he knows that he can kind of get away with it, I guess. Yeah,
that's really sweet. Oh, what a sweet boy. I love Clak. I'm so happy we have him back.
I'm still trying to figure out what to do with the information that he might have died. If he's not the character that has the
plot armor,
then I just don't know if I can keep watching.
I mean, even that is like, I say that, but I mean, anything could happen. But yeah, it would have to be, it would have to be pretty intense for this one particular character.
I have two theories, but I won't share them.
He can also just die in combat. Like,
yeah,
he has half my amount of hit points, so he's not going to get one-shotted by most things. But like, if there's just like an area of effect.
He was on his third death save in the Baron von Kron
he
fight,
went down in that one.
and he rolled a natural 20 on his third death save, and he just came back.
Yeah, he did almost die in that fight. I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's almost died in a couple fights. And I was like out of magic. Like, I wouldn't have been able to bring him back until the following day.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild.
That was a fun fight. Man, that was a fun one.
That was a good one.
Crazy place.
I can't wait until we maybe ever start actually talking about the arcs.
It'll probably take a while, because that happened shortly before pre-streams, or like shortly before we started streaming. So it's probably going to be one of the last ones you get to.
Yeah, because we're going to start at like, we all met in that tavern and this happened. So we'll start from the beginning, because there's so much that like Sean has heard about, but doesn't know the like ins and outs of everything.
Sean knows all of it.
Sean knows all of it.
Yeah, well, let me tell you about Zacchus.
And I think we're going to have to get Tim on again to talk more stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
thanks for joining us, Tim. It was fantastic to get a little peek behind the screen.
Because we love you. And
love
you're
y'all.
such a good DM.
I try. You guys are great players. It makes a world of difference. Having people who are invested and always show up excited to play, it just like makes a world of difference.
Well, Thank you so much for joining us, Tim. Wednesday,
Yes.
we have a very, very special one shot.
Cathedral.
It is only 2 days away.
Yes.
So please join us Wednesday for a very exciting premiere of a new game type, as well as just a very fun session.
We'll also be teasing the art created by Tiana on our Instagram. We'll be throwing up the teaser trailer on our Instagram as well over the next couple of days. So please go check that out. And I also want to announce our topic for next Chatwater. Mr. Sean Deppner is going to be in the hot seat because it is a Letters Ask Me Anything next week. So we're going to talk all about letters next week.
It is going to be the most derailing of episodes ever.
It's your turn. All of the other, like other than myself, it's you and I are the only two kind of like character PCs that have not had our Ask Me Anything episodes.
Oh, gosh. See, okay, great. Oh my God. Oh God.
Can't wait.
I am okay. Well, we'll get there when we get there, and we'll get there next week. Chatwater Letters episode. Buckle your pants because we're going to Letters Town.
I think in a reversal here, we'll ask me the question. I will tell you what I think the answer is for letters, and then
I love that.
And then Sean will inform us the correct answer, which will be way more buck wild than anything.
Correct it.
I was going to say, do I have to derail you both next week? Because we know that's not happening.
I would love to see you try. Like,
oh,
I would
God.
love to see, like, your mission this episode is to be the derailing influence.
If I check
the
Chatwater notes, she will have planned the derailments. She will be like
pre-planned derailment,
and then end it out
like a web, what are the, like a flow chart? Like if they go this way, I'll go that way, and if that leads to that,
zig, I'm gonna zag. That's
She's gonna have on a train track where you shift tracks. She's gonna shift tracks. And she's gonna be like, look, I derailed you, and like, no, we're still on the track.
We're still on the track.
You planned for this.
You're picking, that's gonna be great. I thought about just writing no show notes, and that will be my biggest derailing thing that I could do.
Derail yourself.
I derailed myself.
You're gonna be the only one uncomfortable with that situation.
Yeah, that's true.
Sean
that's
and
so
I will be
true. Neither of you care.
I mean, I look at them. Sean doesn't even have access to them.
No, he didn't want it.
So. Yes, that'll be next week's Chatwater. Before that, we have Saturday's live stream, 8 p.m., same time, same place. It is going to be the Battle Royale with our very fun face-making dragon.
Dead Tiamat.
It's Dead Tiamat.
It's a little homebrew. It's fun.
Yeah.
Or as I like to call it, Zombie-amat.
Oh, I like it.
That's off the...
I like it. I'm here for it.
So join us
I don't like it.
Wednesday, 8 p.m., Cathedral. Saturday, 8 p.m., Dragon Battle. Monday, 8 p.m., Chatwater featuring letters. Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Tim, we blow kisses.
Bye.
Bye.